Now, a Hutch's weather update with Chief Meteorologist Hutch Johnson, brought to you by Robert Gibb and Sons.
Hello everyone, meteorologist Hutch Johnson joining you on this Sunday afternoon. The National Weather Service has issued our first severe thunderstorm warning for what could be a very busy evening of weather here, an afternoon of weather across the area. This is from the National Weather Service office in Bismarck. I'm going to have an update on this storm, its track, its timing, where it's heading. And for all of you celebrating graduations with graduations parties and the like going on right now, I'm going to have an update for you on the timing of when storms look like they could work their way into the area. We're also going to talk about what could cause this system to be maybe stronger or even weaker than forecast. Nathan, it's good to have you on board. As is always the case on Hutch's Weather, please drop me a line. Let me know where you're watching from. And if you have any questions at all, it's interactive. It's you and me. And let's talk. And I'll try to do my best to make sure that you are fully informed about what's going on. One of the beautiful things about Hutch's Weather is you get an opportunity to watch it no matter where you are on YouTube, on Facebook. You just take Hutch with you with your cellular device. So keep this handy. If storms form today in your area, I will be doing frequent updates throughout the day's events. We do have all modes of severe weather that will be possible. Yes, we could see some tornadoes today in our area. There is some spin in the atmosphere. In fact, last night, if you watch my update, I said this Highway 200 corridor to Interstate 94 could bring the greatest threat. I also said these early storms that form may have the best chance at the strongest potential. So our risks today include up to 2-inch diameter hail. Some may see a little bit bigger than that, I'm believing, down to the south of us and along the South Dakota border. We could have damaging straight line winds, and the longer this event goes on, then that risk will shift to a straight line wind threat. I'll keep you posted on when that transition takes place with the storm's structure. The other thing is with these storms and with regard to their severity is that, again, we could see some sizable hail, and damaging straight line winds could exceed 70 miles per hour today. Milky skies here in Hackensack, won't that limit storms? I've been worried about the same thing, Chad. Thank you. That's a wonderful question. Judy, good to have you on from Moorhead. Good to have you on, Teresa, from New Rockford. You're really close to this storm warning. Milky skies and the clouds can definitely impact it, and it's on my list right here of what I'm going to cover right now. Let's get started with the warning, shall we? This warning was issued by the National Weather Service in Bismarck. This storm's moving northeast at about 20 miles per hour. The warning is in effect until 2 o'clock. Right now, we're sitting at 111. 111, so for the next 49 minutes. Now, this storm is moving northeast at 25, 60 mile per hour gusts and quarter-size hail are possible from this storm. So that's where it's at. Now we're going to look at the radar. But you see all these colors, some fancy colors I have on here? This is the Storm Prediction Center's risk area. This has not changed much, and this is just recently updated. So we have a risk of severe weather that's a level 2 on a 5-level scale here in our area. This orange area in Nebraska and into Kansas, there is an enhanced risk of severe weather. And we have ongoing severe weather for those of you watching on a national scale in Lubbock and Wichita Falls down here as we look down towards, well, Texas. So we do have some strong storms there. All these storms will have that risk for producing some locally heavy rain and flooding. Let's get right to the warning. Now let's go ahead and turn these advisories off here from the Storm Prediction Center. And now we're going to look at the radar. So let's pop up the radar with regard to this storm, and we'll take a peek at what we have going on here in the local area. So the Bismarck radar showing this storm moving northeast at 25 miles per hour. It is exiting Kidder County, although look at this little kidney bean right here. This is not in the warned area. This one must have just formed, and that little shape is spinny looking. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and analyze this as the radar loads up a loop of the data. And this little guy that's just forming right here with that little finger off the back, that's called a hook echo. So I'm going to analyze that. This storm moving into Cathay here and also moving just south of Fessenden as the crow flies straight southeast of Fessenden by 8.2 miles is this severe storm. Where you see the pinks is where we have the hail threat with this storm. And where you see the movement, it's taking its gentle time working its way, but it is moving right towards New Rockford. So for the warned storm, allow me to give you some timing if you're in New Rockford. Seek shelter away from windows. All threats will be possible from this storm as we go through. Right now, we're watching for that threat to be hail and gusty straight line winds. It's moving northeast. I'm going to the core of the storm where the hail is. You're going to get rain and thunder in and around New Rockford here as this storm works its way towards you. Hutch always enhances the speed by just a little bit because thunderstorms inherently can speed up a little bit. We have a delay in my broadcast that's just a few seconds. So this gives you time to prepare. This looks like it's going to be in the Cathay area in about 10 minutes. So you look at the current time, 1:12 p.m. Central Daylight Time. And in 10 minutes from now, that makes it 1:22. So Cathay, it's heading right towards you at this time. That's when the hail core arrives. It's on towards New Rockford in about 40 minutes from now. That would be about 1:50. The warning is in effect until 2 o'clock, as we discussed moments ago. We'll see if the storm continues on towards Cheyenne, Fort Totten, and on towards Tokyo, but we'll kind of take a look at the spin with regards to this particular storm. And that's what we're going to look at right now. I'm changing the colors on this. One of the beautiful things about my ability here to broadcast and stream live on these platforms is I can analyze all day. And if you have a question, you can let me know what's going on. Teresa says it's thundering in New Rockford now. We're going to take a look at this storm and a view from the eyeballs from space. We're going to look at it from the ground. Let's check it out. This storm is showing all unidirectional wind. All the colors are red. That's a good sign. Now, that's the high resolution velocity, but it is coming from a long ways away in Bismarck. Here's a look at when we take away the storm's motion, and we do see some greens and reds next to each other, but not right next to each other. So when you're looking at these colors, something for you to learn is that this gray line is a zero line. And when you see that, that means the rotation is there on the large scale, but it's not necessarily tight. It's not like we have the spin right next to each other here. So we'll be watching for this. We got a strong motion toward the radar here over the Chelsea area. And when we look into the Bowdoin area, there's strong motion away from the radar. And there's the latest scan. The strong motion is getting a little bit closer to each other. There's less gray between the two areas. So there is a little bit of spin in that particular storm. This little one with the finger that we were looking at down here, I'm not seeing evidence of strong spin or shear in that. But again, it is a little ways away from the radar. Now we can do what's called double Doppler. Let's take a look at another Doppler radar. Let's look at the Mayville radar and see if we're also seeing the same thing. It's still pretty far away, storm relative velocity. There's still the gray between the red and the green, which means that there's some broad scale rotation with the storm, but not necessarily the tight rotation. Now, we're going to turn on a couple of other tracking features with this storm so I can tell you what the radar is picking up with regards to this storm's ability to produce severe weather. For that, let's go here and turn on some track lines. This will give us an idea of each individual thunderstorm cell that the Doppler radar is tracking from Bismarck. Okay, this storm here is showing that it's moving northeast at 40 miles per hour. So again, it's picking up a little bit of velocity. Will it hit north of Maddock, Patty? Let me check this for you. This particular severe storm looks like it's going to be south of Maddock. Okay, so here's Maddock on the radar here. This one, the track of it's this way. It's going to stay to your south. This storm is. There could be more development. Stay tuned for that. So let me put this back into regular mode, and you'll see that the core of this storm that's the reddest, that's where the hail potential is the greatest, is just now approaching the Cathay area. Sykeston, it's just north of you. So that's where the main hail core is. We're already getting some showers and rumbles of thunder that you're probably hearing in and around the New Rockford area. Storm is going to, at present motion, be very close to New Rockford, but the majority of the heavier rain and hail looks like it may just sneak north of town. Okay, that is a look at the current situation here. I do want to go ahead and take a brief second and cover the storm down in Wichita Falls, Texas, for those watching on more of a national scale. I'm going to get right back to the Dakotas here in a second. We'll talk about the timing. This storm here heading in toward the Wichita Falls area is strong. Let's see what radar says. 60 mile per hour gusts and 1 inch diameter hail will be possible with that storm. It's moving right into Wichita Falls right now. There is a little echo here that has this hook shape on it. I'm going to look at the velocity on this storm here real quick for you folks watching in this area. And there are a couple of pockets of shear or spin in the storm, not necessarily strong. So the main threat is going to be the hail and the gusty straight line winds. And the hail looks significant from this other warned storm that's here near the Benjamin area. Let me put the regular radar display up here. See the pink? The number 2 says this storm is capable of over 2-inch diameter hail as it moves just north of Benjamin right now. That storm is considerable threat. You see that in red? Considerable. Golf balls and 60-mile-per-hour wind from that particular storm. The risk for severe weather today stretches from the international border all the way into the deep south of Texas. That does include some of the greatest storm risk in Nebraska, which we'll be watching for you folks in Kearney and North Platte throughout the day as well. Now, we do have some concerns for a new storm that's just now showing up on the radar here in the Dakotas, and that's up here near Belcourt. If you're in Dunseith to Belcourt, if you're up in this area here, not far from the area in Bisbee and St. John, this area has a very strong thunderstorm cell. It's moving north toward the border, and this line of thunderstorms has a couple of areas of hail. Rolette, chance for some good size hail chunks coming from the sky from this. Could be 3/4 of an inch in diameter, maybe even a little more in isolated places. And it has this backward C shape to it, meaning gusty straight line winds could exceed 50 miles per hour from that particular storm. There's not a warning for it yet, but there is the potential for up to 1-inch diameter hail. It's on that, what we would call marginal risk. It's close to severe level. We got a couple of thunder showers near the FM area. If I go ahead and pop up our local radar here, you can see those stretch all the way up towards Hillsboro. These are non-severe storms right now, and their risk of becoming severe at the present time is not huge. This main line is out to the west. Let me show you a little bit on our forecast. Do you think we're going to clear out and get some sunshine before the storms, Jeremy? That's a good question. It's number 1 on my list. We looked at the Storm Prediction Center's area of risk. We talked about the threats being all threats of severe weather are on the table. Flooding, hail over 2 inches in diameter, gusts of wind to around 70 miles per hour, maybe more down in South Dakota. And we talked about the risk of some spinning tornadoes. Now we're going to take a look at the analysis. Here's what Hutch wants to watch for. This is the visible satellite, what you would see from space. See the clearing taking place out here south of Fargo? This area that gets the clearing, we've been socked in with the gray skies all day in Fargo and up towards Grand Forks. That limits the energy available in the atmosphere to do the rising, the lifting that we need to make the thunderstorms. See these big pancakes forming here? That's the warned storm. It's huge when viewed from satellite. It's the top of the cloud spreading out. We call that an anvil cloud, the cumulonimbus cloud. You can see it from space. Another ones forming up here by the border are starting to show that pancake shape to the tops of them. There's a lot of lift in the atmosphere in these areas where they got this sun. So in northeast North Dakota, you're getting sun, the atmosphere is getting less and less stable, and you see this little pimple forming here. That's got to be close to you in the Walhalla area. That little pimple up there, that's a pretty stout storm. So yes, where we see this area of clearing is where Hutch thinks we really need to keep our eyes on the skies for you today. So it's important to keep in mind a couple of things. First of all, I want to throw a shout out to my friend Mark. You know who you are. Thanks for these. I got to talk to you a little bit more about our threats today and the timing. I'm loading up a radar model here, and we're going to go through this together so you can see when the storms may affect your area. And I know your time is important. If you have plans today for graduation parties across the area or the nation, here's what you need to know. We're going to go right to an hourly updated model. Okay. It's one we call a rapid refresh model because it updates every hour. The problem is every hour it comes out with a different forecast. The beauty is sometimes it resets itself and it locks onto storms. I'm going to take a look at this for you here now, and we're going to do it together. It's the first time I've looked at it with you, so let's do it. Now, I'm going to go back 1 hour so we can take a look at the most recent model that is in. Now, this doesn't go all the way into tomorrow, but we don't need it to. The risk is now through the evening. Let's get into it here. Let's go ahead and walk this through. This is the northern plains. I'll look at the southern plains here in just a bit. Now, you're looking at the time frame of 20. This is about 3 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So as we go through the next couple of hours, notice there's a low pressure center up here, some thunderstorm development here. Does this model look pretty good for what's happening now? Has a couple of cells here and a cell up north. Not the greatest. That means this model did not fire off the greatest, but it does have the general vicinity of where the thunderstorms are. I talked about this last night. We don't have the skill. Our computer models do not have the skill to, on a regular basis, tell you where a pimple of a thunderstorm that's only 10 miles in diameter is going to form. But it can give us an idea where the energy is the greatest and where it may happen. So watch this as we step through time. This now carries us to around the 6 p.m. time frame tonight. So it's quiet in Fargo. It's quieter in Grand Forks, minus the little thunder showers we have skirting the area right now that the model is obviously not picking up on until a little bit later tonight. But these first storms that fire right here on this line will have the greatest risk of producing those threats of the largest hail and the spin-ups. Thank you so much, Julie. I appreciate your gift of stars. That helps Hutch a great deal. Now, let's move on a little bit later. This is as we look in on the 5 p.m. time frame here. So now these storms are pushing into the Highway 200 corridor. And watch where they go. There's also a cluster of storms in South Dakota. This also shows that not everybody's getting storms tonight, right? And what can limit the storms? The clouds. That band of clouds that's stuck over Fargo all day might limit the severity. But if we break out and we get some sun at all, the atmosphere becomes less stable and our chances increase. Now you're looking at about 10 o'clock at night. We're 8 to 10 o'clock at night. The storms are moving into northwest Minnesota. If you're going to get storms, it's going to be this evening after dinner. Those will be the best chance for some strong ones. We have a few moving into your area now. Here's the main event coming through. As it lines up into a line like this, it becomes linear and the main threat will shift from those terrible tornadoes to a chance for some very gusty straight line winds. And this model has it moving right through Fargo's kitchen. This is 4Z minus 5. This is 10 to 11 o'clock tonight. So the risk in the Red River Valley for this line of the main event storms looks to be a little bit later than we were talking last night. Check this out. This is a warm front here. These storms could have some rotation or spin in them. That's along the warm front. We'll keep our eyes on that. And then anywhere down here where storms are just forming, where we saw that sunlight in the day, those storms with a strong south inflow may persist a little bit into the night. Models are unclear. But now we've got the timing from Model 1. Val, thanks. Tracy, thanks. I appreciate all of you. Let's look at one more model because Hutch doesn't always put all his marbles in one basket. This model here, let me just go out and make sure we're on the most recent one. We're going to go out just a little bit in time, and here we go. Look at the difference. This one says we're going to have storms almost all over the place at 5 p.m. tonight. And see, we already have this backward C shape, and this linear line of storms with a backward C shape means this is a wind event. If this happens, we could see more widespread damaging straight line winds. Any of these isolated cells that form out here, Hutch will be watching very closely for spin. Those will have the greatest chance at that. Again, this is 5 p.m. tonight on this model. When do they get to Grand Forks? This is 6 to 7 o'clock at night. This is when they also get to Fargo. So this model says earlier for Fargo, but it's also a solid line, much different than the last model we saw. These move into Lakes Country, including Becker and Otter Tail County, as we go into the midnight hour, and then it exits pretty quickly. They could still be windy, but the risk for severe does seem to wane a little bit as we get into the late night hours. That's Model 2. I'm looking at one more. Why? Not to confuse us, but because we're looking at what options are legit and what options are out to lunch. Now, this is another model. This one is showing storms firing about where they are about now. This one might have the best chance at being accurate because it is already looking a little better than the other two. See this activity along the South Dakota border here and into southeast North Dakota where we get the clearing? These could be nasty. If these form by themselves like this, we'll be watching. The main line here is approaching as we go into about this is the 5 p.m. time frame. Okay. Then as we skirt further in line, it becomes more of a North Dakota, South Dakota, West Central Minnesota event, and all this stuff up north dissipates. That's 3 models. All of them have similar timing. After dinner for the main event for Grand Forks and Fargo. The main event happening now and into the mid-evening hours for eastern portions of North Dakota. And it will be in the late evening after dinner, 7 to 11 for our Minnesota counties. That's the best I can do. Okay, Tiffany says, got the trampoline flipped and you're prepared for the winds. Good idea. These gusty, windy storms can cause trampolines to roll through some neighborhoods. So that's what's going on right now with that picture. Now, I am going to give a brief update too for my national viewers watching on all of my channels here. I do appreciate you. If you are watching Hutch Johnson right now, it's a pleasure to have you on board. If you like what you see, give me a thumbs up. Make sure you hit the subscribe button for those of you watching on the YouTube channels. Cheryl says, grateful. Thanks for the coverage. It's a pleasure to do it, Cheryl. Bob, I'm just fortunate to do what I love to do, which is watch the weather for you. And I love passing along my analysis in real time. And this platform allows me the opportunity to answer your questions and do that. So all of you, Julie, Mary, Bob, Linda, and Lisa watching on the YouTube stream, thank you very much. I appreciate your subscriptions, follows, and likes. Now, let's take a look also. I do have another stream over here on Facebook. Jamestown, what's going on, Chris? In Jamestown 1 minute ago, we showed you the risk for storms are forming now north of Jamestown. Let me show you the radar right now because there is some activity in your area. And there's activity in the Fargo area. And we have flood watches that I haven't gone over yet. These little light green shaded boxes here near Wahpeton, that's a flood watch. That's for the Red River near Wahpeton. Heavy rain is expected from these storms. That was just flooding, so we'll be watching that for you. And we also have, well, this is the Buffalo River. That Buffalo River area is on a flood watch. Now, the heaviest of the rain right now, there is some in the FM area. So if you're out and about or if you have a graduation party, this is not severe right now, but we do have storms. The heaviest of which, though, are moving towards you folks. And if you have a Grandin graduation party, a Hendrum or Hallstead or Pearly graduation party, or maybe out towards Gardner, I'm assuming many of the Minnesota ones are already all but done, but look at this, a little X marks a spot there. We're going to loop this for you so you can see just the last half hour, the motion of these storms north and east. Non-severe right now, locally heavy rain, up to a ½ inch, maybe a little bit more. And if you have a move over, I'd love to hear what you have. MJ, good to have you on board, and thank you for the kudos. I appreciate you joining me as well. Pass the word. You can help Hutch if you don't have the wherewithal to send stars. That's okay. Pass the word that Hutch is doing the weather right now for you. That helps Hutch in a great way. And let people know that they can get notified on Facebook when I am going to do the weather, and those notifications can help give you advance notice. Now look at this storm. It's very near you in New Rockford. Will the warning continue? Look at this over the last few scans. There's still some pink in it. There's still some hail potential. I'm going to look and see if we've got any hail reports from this storm from my friends at the National Weather Service here. Oh, we got ominous skies, light rain. We do have some activity going on out there, but I don't see posts or hail reports from this cell yet. If you get hail, get yourself a ruler. Measure the diameter of the largest stone, and that helps us keep people informed as to what's going on with regards to these storms. So here's a look at some information for you about reporting hail size. And this is important because some people say, yeah, we got us some marble-sized hail. That report is lovely. I appreciate it. The National Weather Service appreciates it. We need to know. But marbles can be different size, right? You got the little cat eye ones. You got the little BB-sized ones. You got the boulders, right? Here's a look at some things to do. You find the largest stone. They're not always perfectly round. So you find the longest part of the diameter and you measure it, and here you go. This is a look at what the National Weather Service says. Now, small marble, they say, is about a ½ inch in diameter. I'd rather you use coins. A penny, we know the diameter is 3/4 of an inch. A nickel is 0.88 inches, and a quarter is 1 inch. Once we get 1/4 inch hail, that is a severe thunderstorm. If there's just one hailstone that fell that's 1 inch in diameter, it's a severe storm. And downwind, it could produce even bigger hail. If you have a $50 in your pocket, which not many of us carry those around, that's 1 1/4 inch. But just measuring can be helpful. Now, if you don't have anything to measure with or coins, then yeah, it looks like about the tennis ball size. It's about lime or hen egg sized. I haven't seen a lot of ostrich eggs, but we do get people reporting that kind of stuff. Baseball size hail. I always am careful with softball size hail. As someone who played baseball and softball for a whole lot of years, those softballs come in different size. So again, a measurement is better, but if it looks like it's about the size of a softball, you betcha, that's headache hail. And 4 inch diameter or more is getting up towards grapefruit. And if you have a CD, just pop that puppy out and put the hailstone on there. Is it as big as a CD? That's 4 3/4 to 5 inches. It looks like the New Rockford storm that's heading your way is actually on the latest scan starting to lose just a little bit more punch. But please keep in mind this is a long ways from the radar. We're looking at it from the Mayville radar. Let me take a look from the Bismarck radar just to double Doppler it and kind of tag team it and see what both radars are saying. This can help see if they're seeing the same thing. Indeed, there's fewer red pixels in here. The increased hail size with that storm cell seems to be winding down. If you're in Belcourt, that storm seems to be fairly stout. Down to the south, severe thunderstorms near Ardmore, Texas, Wichita Falls, and Seymour, Texas. Now, I promised you a look at your forecast, and we're going to go over that right now with a USA view of this hourly forecast. Now, the risk for severe weather today is going to be most threatening as we look into the central plains down in Nebraska. And I want to switch this out from a visible satellite forecast to a look at the future radar for all of the nation. Here we go. Now, this, I'm going to go back to the most recent model run that's all the way in, and we're going to take a look together at these storms. We already have ongoing convection and storms in Texas right now. This model is picking up on a little bit of that. As we go into the afternoon, here is what's going to happen. The low pressure system moves out of Colorado, and here the storms fire in the heat of the day from Nebraska through Kansas and into North Texas, the panhandle of Oklahoma too, for you folks near Guyman. Now, as we look down into southern Nebraska, this area here could have an extreme risk for some spin in the atmosphere. The timing on this is 7 p.m. So between 4 and 7 p.m., the western parts of Nebraska and Kansas will have a shot at some very stout thunderstorms. And these initial ones could indeed have quite a bit of spin to them. Now, the storms moving through the northern plains will continue as we go into the late evening hours. Here, you are looking at midnight. So we got some midnight rockers moving through parts of near Kearney, Nebraska, heading in towards Lincoln and Omaha. And those storms could be persistent and produce some, well, after midnight thunder in Omaha and Lincoln and southeast parts of Nebraska. Notice the storms kind of fizzle out in the deep south here. We'll have a couple of thunderstorms out there, but this does not look like the ideal setup for some nocturnal nasties, as I like to call them. So that's a look at your timing for the storms, but I did want to point out this. In the atmosphere where the spin is the greatest to produce severe weather, we'll look at the tornado parameter. The model here will calculate where the tornado risk is greatest. Notice in the Dakotas here, this is as we go through the evening, we have these lighter colors. Look at this along the South Dakota border. There is some spin as the storm moves through. Look at this along the Texas line with Oklahoma there. Yikes, that's some higher storm and spin risk. And as we look into parts of central and southern Nebraska, this is as we go through the evening hours, 4 to 6 p.m., there's some pretty stout spin in the atmosphere. Texas, this is ridiculous spin in the atmosphere, but will you make storms in South Texas? Well, the forecast said no. You may have what we have a cap going on there, where thunderstorms just may not have the ability to form. Here's a look at the instability, where the rise and lift in the atmosphere is going to be the strongest. What you're going to see is a boom as we go into the evening hours tonight right here in parts of central Nebraska. It's not as strong as it was looking yesterday. It's more along this part of Nebraska near North Platte, Wichita, west parts of Kansas, out near Goodland. Okay, those areas, it looks like the risk is out there as we go through the early evening and late afternoon hours. So keep your eyes on that. There's a ton of lift in Texas and along the Oklahoma border here with nearly 4,000 joules of upward velocity with those storms. So that's a look at your national picture with the weather. That's a look at your local picture with the weather. It's all starting now, but the main event is not started yet. In North Dakota, one more time. Look what's going on to the south of Jamestown. We're getting these little pimple poppers out here, folks. And again, I got to tell you that where we see these storms firing right now is just off to the near Medina and Cleveland here on I-94, northern parts of Stutzman, but we got a couple cells starting to fire down here. Remember what I said about these storms in the south? That's where the sun was, okay? So if we take a look at our computer model one more time, I'm going to go back to our computer model up here in our area. Okay, here we go. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up the latest model run. Bear with me again. I appreciate you bearing with me. Takes just a bit of time. This is a good one. Here it is. These storms forming down here in parts of southeast North Dakota. And now you're looking out here near Chamberlain, Pierre, South Dakota, heading in towards places like Huron. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop a spot in the thunderstorm development, and I'm going to ask the model, what's the atmosphere look like? What's the vertical structure of the atmosphere look like? And is it good for the possibility of making severe weather? This one doesn't look particularly great, but if we get out ahead of the storm near or closer to the warm front out here, let's see what the threats or risks are there. Marginal, severe in southeast North Dakota. That's good to know. Down in South Dakota, if you're near Chamberlain, those risks do increase just a little bit, but at this particular time, it doesn't look to be terrible. So that's good. Now we'll advance the time. This one is marginal for a tornado, it says. So we can look at the profile of the atmosphere's temperature and moisture, and we can calculate the energy in the atmosphere with the wind direction. We can calculate the spin and shear in the atmosphere, and we can identify areas where the spin is going to be a little bit greater. This is the late afternoon hours. And as we go into the event a little bit later, we get this area here looking more like a warm front. So now we're going to query it one more time in southeast North Dakota here and take a look at what the model says. Marginal, severe. Okay, so some strong to severe storms tonight, gusty straight line winds. And again, a look at that radar showing that we definitely do have some building towers and thunderstorms just north of Wishick out near Napoleon and west of Jamestown heading into the Woodworth area. I'll continue to monitor these storms. Your warning for the New Rockford area, that storm is out of the area, but the warning is continuing until 2 o'clock for now. So I imagine there'll be an update between the folks at the Bismarck National Weather Service office, and this just happens to be the county handoff where the Grand Forks office picks it up. New flood watch issued up here, Walsh County, Marshall County, north of Grand Forks, and we have a flood watch in and around Grand Forks as well for some very heavy rain from these storms. And I know you folks in agriculture do not need a lot of heavy rain. In fact, you'd like to see things dry out so you can get your seeding completed. And that's how we're looking right now. I'm meteorologist Hutch Johnson. I appreciate your patience with me. Again, I'll look for questions to see that I've answered most of them. Debbie, thank you. Mike, good to see you from Mankato. I hope things are well in southern Minnesota. When is that like time? When is that like time? Katie, I would like to answer that question, but I'm misunderstanding it. So I beg your forgiveness there. Sure, windy and Oaks. Yeah, we've got this south wind ahead of the storm. One more look at the satellite loop here, which is kind of an interesting telltale sign of what's going on. Where we get this sun, this solar energy, the atmosphere will become less stable. We're really got a big cluster of storms here heading along the Highway 200 corridor. That's the one that's not far from you in New Rockford. But the latest radar trend shows it's weakening. Look at this. It's moving into an area where we got some solar energy making its way down to the ground to warm the atmosphere up. We'll see how things go today. I will continue to keep you updated. Thank you so very, very much. And again, if storms approach your area, the number one thing you can do for your safety and your family's safety is stay informed. So, is there a warning? Right now, there is energy in the atmosphere. We could see some stout thunderstorms. I'm going to take one more look at one more thing here from the Storm Prediction Center. Let's go to this. Let's go here and okay. Pardon me. I'm just analyzing in real time. Okay. So for now, there is a risk of severe storms. We have had one severe thunderstorm warning. That storm seems to be waning in intensity a little bit, but we have some strong ones here in northeast North Dakota. They're moving northeast at about 30 miles per hour. More storms are forming now west of the Jamestown area. I'll keep you posted right here on the storms in the northern plains, the southern plains, and a little bit later, we're expecting some explosive development there in western parts of Nebraska and Kansas. Have a great afternoon. Stay weather aware, and as always, stay tuned and stay safe.